Hey, Allison Verhalen here with AV Writing Services. And today I want to talk to you about the importance of storytelling in marketing, specifically as it relates to your blog posts. I know I hear all the time people saying no one reads blog posts anymore, but everyone reads stories. Everyone is watching Netflix and watching their favorite streaming services. They're consuming stories in all kinds of formats. And that's because we're primed to engage with stories. We're primed to stick around longer if there's a story that is very attractive to us, that we relate to the characters. We want to know what happens next. And of course, different people are attracted to different kinds of stories, and that's fine. But you need to have some kind of storytelling element in your content in order to engage those people. I think that's the biggest problem I see with business owners who are trying to do their own content marketing, and they just lay out the facts. And yes, you need the facts to convert people into customers, to convert them, to convince them that you really know what you're talking about. That's great. That needs to be a part of your marketing process, but it cannot be the only thing in there. You need to have a story that is engaging, and it doesn't have to be fictional. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. And you can switch it up. You can have some fictional stories and some real stories. So as an example of the importance of content marketing, of storytelling and content marketing, I can tell you a story about a prospect I had. She signed up for my newsletter like 2 or 3 months ago. Didn't hear from her, didn't reach out to her until last month. And then suddenly she reached out to me and said, "Hey, I really need your services." So we hopped on Zoom, we had a conversation. I was all prepared to educate her about, why she should buy longer blog posts, why she should be blogging more frequently, why she should buy a certain package. She was already sold on that because she had already been reading my blog post. She had gotten all that information from my blog post. So she was already sold on the longer blog post because that's what I do on my own blogs. And I explain why I do that. There's an SEO reason behind it, as well as engaging people and keeping them engaged until they reach the very end of the blog post, and hopefully until they reach the end of the buyer journey. So she was ready to go. And that was all through my blog. That was probably the easiest sales conversation I've ever had, because she was already educated. And that's a huge thing that I hear, especially with people in the B2B industries, the professional services industries. They have a really hard time educating their audience, and they have people coming to them who think they know everything or think they know what they need, and they really don't understand how it works. And sometimes it can be hard to have that conversation. But if you can just give them a bunch of blog posts to read and educate them that way, then when they are ready to buy, they know you're the person to go to because you gave them all this great information. You demonstrated your expertise, and they're better educated because they read all that great content. So I can tell you that story, or I can just list off a bunch of facts and figures and statistics about blogging and how many people are investing in blogging and how many people actually do read blogs and blah, blah, blah. That's not as interesting, is it? That story was much more engaging. And it convinces you of the purpose of blogging, that it does have value, that it really does work. It can take us several months, but it does work. It's definitely a long-term strategy. It's not a get rich quick scheme by any means. So that being said, it's one thing to say, you need a story in your marketing, and another thing to actually do it. Even if you do write fiction for yourself, just for fun, or maybe professionally, there's a difference between writing fiction for fun or writing a novel or a short story versus writing a story aspect into your marketing content or your blog post. So we're going to talk over how to work that story into your blog post. So I like to use something I call the Cinderella Formula because it's super simple. Everyone knows the formula. I call it the Cinderella Formula, but so many stories through the ages of time have used this same formula because it's super simple and it works, right? So you've got Cinderella. She's starting off, we meet her in a bad place, right? Her mom has just died. Her dad has just married this strange woman. Cinderella doesn't know her very well. She's got these 2 daughters already. They're not very nice to Cinderella. Things are not looking great for Cinderella, right? So this is your pain point. This is where you introduce to people what their pain point is that you're solving for them. We're not going to get into solving it just yet, but you know the problems that you're solving for your customers. So this is where you really zero in on that pain point and how much it hurts. And then you're going to make it even worse. You're going to agitate the problem, right? Because then things get worse for Cinderella. Her dad dies and she's basically enslaved by her stepmother and stepsisters. She has to do all the cooking and cleaning while they get to dress up and be genteel ladies, right? So what does that look like for your customers? How do things get even worse for them if they don't address the problem right now? The pain point you're addressing could be something they're already aware of. That's why they came to your blog, because they know they have this problem and they're looking for solutions, and you're just explaining to them that you understand where they're coming from. You understand their pain point, and let them know that it's going to get worse if they don't address the pain point. If you don't start blogging now, here's what's going to happen. If you don't do XYZ right now, this is what your life is going to look like in the next few months, years, whatever, right? So then Cinderella's fairy godmother shows up, loans her some nice clothes and a coach so she can go off to the palace with the prince. This is where your 3 tips for your X number of ways to do such and such. This is where you're providing them information on how they can solve the problem themselves, right? Because if anything, you're the fairy godmother in this story, right? Cinderella's she's the good one. She does everything she can do in her circumstances, right, to get what she needs. But she needs a little push. So that's what the fairy godmother comes in to do. So your main character, right, is really your customer. They're the ones they're good at their job or being a parent or whatever problem it is you're solving for them. They're good at it, but they need that little push. And you're just there to give them that little push. So that's where your 3 tips to do XYZ come in. I say 3 because it's so easy, especially if you're writing the shorter blog post to just have 3 tips here. You can go as long as you want, as many tips as you are willing to put into your blog post. If you want those really long blog posts, absolutely put them in, but it's just super quick and easy to say your 3 tips for XYZ, right? Everyone sees those blog posts. They're very clickbaity. They're clickbaity for a reason. People engage with that. People see that and they go, oh yes, I want to know how to do such and such. So this is the part of the blog post where you're going to tell them what they can do to address that problem for them. And then paint a picture of what that looks like. What does their life look like after they have solved that problem? Think about Cinderella at the ball in this beautiful ball gown, dancing with the prince, right? This is the peak of her existence right here. So paint a picture of what that looks like for your client. The pain point isn't there anymore, doesn't exist. You've solved that problem. They get to go do XYZ instead, which is what they really want to be doing, right? No one wants to be bothering with their blog, for example. So paint a picture of what that looks like when their problem is solved. But you're not going to end there, because remember, after Cinderella goes to the ball, she's back at home with her stepsister and stepmother. And because the godmother's magic is only temporary, right? It only lasts until midnight. The godmother can give her that push, but it's only going to take her so far. It's up to Cinderella to get to her happily ever after. You are not going to give your customer a happily ever after in the blog post, right? You're going to remind them that they have not yet taken that action. They have not yet either fulfilled those steps, done what they need to do to fix the problem themselves, or they have not reached out to you for a consultation, buying your product or service, whatever that next step in the buyer journey is. This is the part where you remind them that they need to take that next step, or they're going to be back in their pain point, right? How many of us have read a blog post or listened to a podcast about how to do XYZ, and then we never follow through? We never actually do that thing. We just consume the information and go, okay, great, I'm good, thanks, bye. Remind them that they still have that pain point to address. So, and then you're going to leave it there. You're not going to give them that happily ever after. You're just going to leave them in that pain point. Just remind them what happens if they don't solve that problem, if they don't, again, take those steps or reach out to you. So That is it. Those are all my tips for how to incorporate storytelling into your marketing. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. I have a bunch more tips like this on my website at avwritingservices.com. You can reach me directly at info@avwritingservices.com. And that is it. That's everything I have for you. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great week and happy blogging.